I want to talk about all the fights that went down this past weekend. We had three very, very entertaining cards that went down this past Saturday night, all on the same. Pretty cool if you're a fight fan. We had a UFC Fight Night card, which was headlined by Beneil Dariush, Aman Sarukyan. That was a really good, I mean, there was a lot of knockouts, a lot of action. That was a really good card. You know, it had Clay Guida giving us a great gutty performance, you know, showing everybody why he's been a fan favorite. You know, he's just a scrappy dude, and even though he lost, he gave a good show, a good performance, and you know, I don't know how much longer he's trying to fight. He didn't put the gloves down in the center of the octagon, so I assume he's going to come back for more. We also had Kelvin Gastelum take on Sam Brady. He got dominated. I mean, he went back down to 170 after being up at 185. It was just a ground game display of dominance on Brady's part. You know, he just constantly kept slamming him, taking him down, and just controlling him on the ground. You know, he ended up, you know, he was going actively for rear naked chokes and ground and pound and just working subs, and he ended up finishing him with the Kimura. So I'm sure Gastelum was frustrated. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think, but he just didn't have anything for the wrestling and the ground game of Brady. Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo gave us some exciting action. Figueiredo moving up in weight, you know, putting on a great display of his power, his striking ability, his relentlessness, his toughness. You know, he's trying to get back into a title mix, and he put himself in the top 10 of the bantamweight division. You know, so he's up there. He's going to be moving up the ranks. And of course, you had Bobby Green versus Turner. He promises to be an exciting fighter, and he was taking some hard licks early in the first round, and he kept, every time he would get hit, he would brush his shoulder off like that. When he got hit with the right hand, it actually like put him down on the ground, which led to his demise. He did like that. He tried to like brush it off while he was like falling down. He realized he didn't have his feet underneath him, and then he was subsequently finished off pretty brutally. And of course, the main event was Beneil Dariush versus Aman Sarukyan, and I didn't expect that to be a first round finish on either man's part, but Arman is on a mission. He finished it. He had a, you know, he put a Dariush in a clinch, and he brought Dariush's head down, and he went for the knee, which caused Dariush to bring his head up, and then he cracked him with a nice straight right that disconnected Dariush from his senses and sent him to the canvas. And Aman Sarukyan followed up. He missed the initial punch as he dove down on the ground to finish him with the ground and pound, but he connected with some solid shots immediately after and finished the fight. And it was a brutal finish. It was an impressive finish. And after the fight, he called out Islam Makhachev, saying that when they fought the first time years ago, that he was just a young man in the game, unpolished, and you know, now he's much more refined, much more grown into his game and in his abilities. And he called out Islam Makhachev, and he says it'll be a different result this time. He's even saying that he should leapfrog Charles Oliveira in the standings as far as who deserves a title shot next. So we'll see what happens with that. But that was a really great card. And then if you were interested, because that came on earlier in the afternoon, you were able to switch over to DAZN, if possible, and catch the main event between Ryan Garcia and Oscar Duarte. This was a tough match for Ryan in his first comeback fight after losing to Gervonta Tank Davis earlier this year. As we know, he was stopped by a body shot. That was the first loss of his career, and he was bouncing back against a very tough, very strong opponent. I think 29 wins with 21 knockouts, something like that. So it was a dangerous fight. He was, in my opinion, and I think on some of the unofficial scorecards, he was doing enough in the first 5 rounds or so. I didn't really see him losing but 1 or 2 rounds, maybe. But anyways, he was getting pressured. Oscar Duarte was pressuring him, and Ryan Garcia was having to go back, and he was getting caught against the ropes. But he wasn't running. You know, he was picking his shots. He was using the lightning fast combinations of jab, 1, 2, 3, and then he was doing hooking off the jab. You know, his special weapon, signature weapon is that left hook, and he was giving Duarte everything he had, and he just kept coming and pressuring. And Ryan Garcia was using sort of like a shoulder roll, Floyd Mayweather style shoulder roll technique, but he was turning so much so to where it was like almost like his back was turned. And Oscar was hitting him in the back and the kidneys, and he was throwing big looping overhand rights that were getting Ryan in the back of the head, rapid punches. He hit Ryan with a couple low blows. He was warned about all these tactics. I don't know if that was his strategy all along, was just to get inside and just rough Ryan up and wear him down and frustrate him and make him open up so he would be susceptible to a big shot. But whatever the case may be, Ryan stayed composed and, in my opinion, was winning most of the rounds. Maybe he lost the 6th or 7th round, and I thought that he was having his worst round in the 8th round when he actually scored the knockout victory with the beautiful left hook that set it up, and then he followed up with combinations when he had Oscar against the ropes and dropped him, and Duarte wasn't able to beat the count. You know, everybody's saying you can't get up at 9.5 and get up wobbly and expect the referee not to wave it off. To his credit, he said after the fight, you know, of course he felt like he could have continued going, but he said he lost fair and square, so respect to that. And I didn't like what the commentators were saying, you know, respect to Sean Porter and Sergio Mora and all that, but they were like trying to say that, suggest that Ryan Garcia was running away, and he wasn't running away. It was, you know, it looked awkward, the tactic that he was using, but he definitely wasn't doing any running. He was staying in the pocket and, you know, throwing his counters and his combos when the opportunity presented itself. It was it was a good paced fight. It wasn't slow. There was a lot of action, a lot of back and forth. And, you know, anybody criticizing his performance, I think, is, to me, doesn't really have any ground to stand on. You know, hearing people say, well, that was an amateurish move, him doing that wannabe shoulder roll and turning his back, but, oh, he did what he had to do, he won. Well, what do you want the guy to do? He won by a knockout. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the problem with that? You just didn't like the way it looked? You know what I mean? He's got a new trainer. Maybe he's trying new things, and maybe, you know, he said it after the fight that guy was hitting him really, really hard, and he knew that the man was dangerous. So, you know, he was just shelling up, but he stood in the pocket, though. You know, even when he got backed up into the corner and into the ropes, you know, of course, you know, he was smart. He held when he had to hold, but he was firing off his combinations, lightning fast combinations, as evidenced by the fact that he knocked him out. So, called out Rawley's after the fight. He called out Shakur Stevenson, and of course we all know he wants to eventually get a rematch back in there with Tank. We'll see how far he can go. I like Ryan as a fighter. I like the way he presents himself, the way he speaks. He's very competitive. He's very respectful. So shout out to him. And then after that, there was even more. BKFC, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, had a card on. There were some really good fights on there. The main event being Platinum Mike Perry versus Eddie Alvarez. As you know, they both used to fight in the UFC, and Mike Perry's really found a lot of success in the BKFC, and he's the king of violence. And actually, that fight wasn't even really going his way. Eddie Alvarez was piecing him up. He was hitting him with a lot of combinations. You know, he was just straight shots and hooks. Like, he was outboxing him. He was really outboxing Mike Perry, but you could just see the size difference. Perry's head was just so much bigger. He was taller. He's wider. He's a naturally bigger man. I'm surprised that they fight in the same weight class. Alvarez looked a lot smaller, but he was doing well. He was busting Perry up, but Perry's just so much stronger that whatever he hit him with was just doing immense damage. And although I had Eddie Alvarez winning after the first 2 rounds, the fight was stopped in the corner. I believe his corner stopped it because he couldn't see out of his left eye. It was swollen shut. I don't know if it was broken, the orbital was broken or what, but the fight was waved off in between the 2nd and 3rd round, and Mike Perry, you know, had his hand raised and remained victorious. And, you know, he gave a pretty cool speech after the fight, you know, talking about, you know, that it's a nasty, nasty world and God bless the babies. And, I mean, there's enough scenarios where you can try to figure out what he is talking about, but, you know, he was just calling out the atrocities in the world and that we need to protect the youngsters. So shout out to him for even saying anything like that. But he's a crazy dude, and like he said, he was built for that. He loves it. It makes him feel alive. And, you know, he doesn't care about the way. I'm no expert. I just call it how I see it. And what I see is that these fight promotions really did us fight fans a solid by lining up the timing of these fights in such a way that we can just enjoy all of them. And they all lived up. They were all well worth it. December is going to be a good month for combat sports in general. So until next time, I'm no expert. I just call it how I see it. Don't forget, you know, engage. Give me a comment. What you think about any of the fights? If you saw any of the fights, let me know what your opinions and thoughts are on any of those fights. We can chop it up in the comments. Until next time, you and